There are two kinds of videos about free AI coding in VS Code. The first kind shows you one trick. It works for about 6 weeks. Then the free tier changes and the comment section fills up with people saying this doesn't work anymore. The second kind teaches you the structure. So when any single piece breaks, you swap that piece and keep working. This is the second kind. And I want to be upfront about something the first kind never tells you. Free has more than one meaning here, and confusing them is how people end up with a surprise bill. There's free as in the tool costs nothing but you pay per token. There's free as in a vendor's free tier, with monthly limits, and there's free as in genuinely zero forever, running on your own machine. All three are legitimate. Only one of them can't send you an invoice. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which is which and how to combine all three so that your actual monthly cost is zero while your capability stays high. Here's what we're covering. The 3-layer model that makes every setup on the internet suddenly legible. Layer 1, the extension, an honest comparison of the real options, including one that's extremely popular in old videos and that you should not install today. Layer 2, the models, 4 separate free routes with the real limits of each. Layer 3, the gateway that turns dozens of separate free tiers into one endpoint with 75+ models behind it. Then the complete setup, the honest cost reality, the 5 mistakes that cause the "it stopped working" comments, and the limits. No credit card required for anything in this video, and nothing here asks you to bend anyone's terms of service. Let's build it. The 3-layer model. Every AI coding setup in VS Code is 3 things stacked, and almost nobody separates them clearly, which is why the advice out there is so confusing. Layer 1 is the extension. The thing that lives in your editor, reads your files, shows you diffs, runs commands, provides autocomplete. This is the interface, and it's where you spend your day. Layer 2 is the model. The intelligence, the extension is a shell. The model is what thinks. And critically, in the open source world, these are separate. Most good extensions are what's called BYOK, bring your own key, which means they don't ship with a brain. They connect to whichever brain you point them at. Layer 3 is the gateway optional, and the piece most guides skip. It sits between your extension and the models, presenting one endpoint that routes to many providers. Here's why separating them matters so much. The layers are independently swappable. If your extension annoys you, swap it and keep your models. If a free tier dries up, swap the model and keep your extension. If a better gateway appears, swap that. The people whose setups break permanently are the ones who installed a bundle and never learned which part failed. Extension, model, gateway. Now let's fill each one in. Layer 1, the extension. And first, what not to install. Let's start with the accuracy problem, because if you search this topic, you'll find a lot of enthusiastic videos recommending something you shouldn't adopt now. RuCode was for a long time one of the top recommendations. A well-liked fork with a genuinely good idea, separate modes for architecting, coding, asking, and debugging. As of this year, it has been archived, and its old domain now points at a separate paid hosted product. Its ideas were influential and live on in other tools. But if a video from a few months ago tells you to install it as your daily driver, that advice has expired. Check the repository's current status yourself before adopting anything. That habit alone will save you a lot of wasted evenings. Now the 3 that are genuinely worth your time. Cline is the most popular agentic extension by a wide margin, over 5 million installs. It's open source and BYOK. It works agentically, you describe a task, it plans, it edits multiple files, it runs commands, and it asks for your approval on changes. Recent versions added native subagents and a command line companion. The important thing to understand about Cline is what it isn't. It does not do inline autocomplete. It's an agent, not a tab completion engine. If you want that gray suggested text as you type, Cline alone won't give it to you. And that surprises a lot of people who install it expecting a Copilot replacement and find something quite different and in some ways more powerful. Continue is the other end of the philosophy. Apache licensed, open source, and the best supported option for local models and for teams that want tight control. Its configuration is declared in a file, so you can specify exactly which models and which context sources the AI is allowed to use. It does chat, it does code-based questions, and it does do autocomplete. One piece of honest disclosure: Continue was acquired by Cursor. The open source extension remains available, and that's the version we're talking about. But it's the kind of fact you should know when you're choosing what to build a workflow on. Code is the newest of the 3, and for the purposes of this video, possibly the most interesting, MIT licensed, free, and open source. And it works in VS Code, JetBrains, and as a CLI. It's agentic with multiple built-in modes and subagent delegation. And here's the part relevant to our title. It ships with a gateway that routes across 500+ models from 60+ providers, with an automatic model router offering tiers, including a free tier. Their gateway is pay-as-you-go at exact provider rates with zero markup, and it does BYOK for the major providers plus local models through Allama or LM Studio. So which do you pick? Here's my honest read. If you want one agentic extension and you're new to this, Cline, because it's the most used, which means the most tutorials, the most community answers, and the fewest dead ends. If you specifically want local models and fine-grained control, continue. If you want the broadest model access and a built-in free tier router with the least configuration, kilocode. And the genuinely useful answer that nobody says, many people run two. An autocomplete first tool for the moment-to-moment typing and an agentic tool for the big multi-file tasks. They're not competitors, they do different jobs, because they're all free and all BYOK. Running two costs you nothing extra. Layer 2, the models, 4 free routes, and the real limits of each. This is where the money normally lives, so pay attention to the fine print on each of these. Route 1, vendor free tiers. The big players all now offer a genuine free tier, and these are the easiest possible start. No keys, no config, just sign in. GitHub Copilot has a free tier that at the time of recording includes on the order of 2,000 completions and 50 chat messages per month. Amazon Q Developer offers unlimited completions plus a limited number of agentic requests. Google's Gemini Code Assist has a notably generous free tier for VS Code and JetBrains. Those numbers are real and they're useful. 2,000 completions is a meaningful amount of assistance for a hobbyist or a student. But understand the shape. They're metered, they're monthly, and the numbers change. In fact, Copilot changed its billing structure earlier this year, which is precisely why a lot of developers went looking for alternatives. Treat published free tier numbers as a snapshot, always. Route 2, free API tiers, direct. Several model providers publish genuine free tiers on their own pricing pages. You sign up, get an API key, and paste it into your BYOK extension. This is where the 75 models style claims come from. And the underlying fact is real. There's an enormous amount of documented free capacity spread across providers. The catch is administrative. Every provider is a separate sign-up, a separate key, a separate rate limit, and a separate dashboard. Do this by hand for 10 providers, and you'll spend an evening on it, and forget which key is which by Friday. Hold that thought, Layer 3 solves it. And one important accuracy note, free tiers get withdrawn. One prominent free command line offering from a major vendor ended its free serving this year, and was replaced by a different product. So build your setup so that no single free tier is load-bearing. Route 3, local models. The only genuinely uncancelable option. Install Alama, pull a coding model that fits your machine, point your extension at it. Both Continue and KiloCode support local models directly. The memory rule from our hardware video applies, roughly half the parameter count in gigabytes. So 8 gigabytes of RAM gets you a small coding model, 16 gigabytes gets you a 14 billion class, 24 gigabytes and up opens the 30 billion class where local coding genuinely competes. And the state of local coding models crossed a real threshold this year. Multiple analyses now say the same thing. Current local coding models on appropriate hardware do work that required a Frontier Cloud model 2 years ago. That's not marketing, that's the consensus. Route 4, the gateway, which is layer 3, and it's next. But before that, which route is actually right for you? Because 4 options is only useful if you know which one to pick. So here are 4 honest profiles. If you're a student or learning to code, start with a vendor free tier, specifically the most generous one you can sign into without a card. 2,000 completions a month is plenty while you're learning. The setup is a sign-in, and you should be spending your energy on the code rather than on infrastructure. Come back to the rest of this video when the limits start annoying you. If you're a professional developer on a decent machine, local model as your floor, gateway on top for the hard requests, that's the setup that gets you to genuinely zero without capping your capability. And it's the one where your employer's code never leaves your laptop. This is the configuration I'd recommend to most people watching. If you're on a modest machine, 8 gigabytes, no GPU, flip the emphasis. The gateway becomes your main route rather than your overflow with a small local model for quick private tasks. You're leaning on other people's free tiers, which means reading their terms carefully matters more for you, not less. If you work somewhere with a compliance function, talk to them before any of this. Not because these tools are dodgy, they're mostly more auditable than commercial products since you can read the source. But which endpoint does our code travel to is a question your security team is entitled to answer. And a local-only configuration is often the easiest thing to get approved precisely because the answer is nowhere. Pick your profile, and the rest of the video is about executing it well. Layer 3, the gateway. 1 key, 75 plus models. Here's the problem in one sentence. Free capacity is abundant, but scattered, and no sane person manages 20 API keys by hand. A gateway fixes that. It presents a single endpoint to your extension, and behind that endpoint, it holds credentials for many providers and routes each request to the right one. 2 flavors are worth knowing. Built into your extension. KiloCode's approach, the gateway ships with the tool, routes across hundreds of models from dozens of providers, and includes an automatic router with a free tier. Least configuration and the model selection is a drop-down rather than a project. Self-hosted and open source. The approach we've covered in depth on this channel. A free MIT licensed gateway that runs on your own machine, presenting one endpoint that fronts hundreds of providers. a large share of them offering free access. The killer feature is quota-aware automatic fallback. When one free pool is exhausted or rate limited, the next request silently routes to the next available provider. Your extension never sees an error. It just keeps working. That's how 75+ models for $0 stops being a headline and becomes a configuration. You put one base URL and one key into your extension settings, and behind it sits a rotating pool of free capacity that refills. And now the caution, which nobody in this genre says clearly enough. Free tiers are a trade and you should know what you're trading. Read the terms. Some providers' free tiers use your prompts to improve their models. That is often exactly why they're free, which means never route proprietary code, client work, or anything under an NDA through a free tier whose terms you haven't read. For that work, use a local model where the question doesn't arise, or a paid tier with the data terms you need. That single paragraph is the difference between a setup that's clever and a setup that gets you in trouble at work. Free compute is not charity, it's an exchange. Know what you're exchanging. The complete setup step by step. Right? Let's actually build it. 15 minutes, 4 steps, and I'll give you the order that fails least often. Step 1. Install one extension. Open the VS Code extensions panel. Search, install, Cline if you want the popular agentic path. Continue if you want local first control. Kilo code if you want maximum model access with minimum setup. 1. Do not install 3 extensions on the same evening. You'll have 3 sets of key bindings fighting each other and no idea which one is misbehaving. Step 2. Get one model working. The single most important step and the one people skip past to get to the exciting configuration. Pick the easiest route available to you, a vendor free tier if you want 0 setup, or Olama with a small local model if you want 0 dependency. Get one model answering one question. Confirm the pipe works before you build anything on it. Step 3. Write your instructions file. This is the highest leverage 15 minutes in the entire setup, and almost nobody talks about it. Create a file in your project root that states your stack, your conventions, your always and nevers, the things you'd tell a new developer on day 1. Every modern extension reads this kind of file, and without it, your agent guesses at your conventions and gets them wrong in every single session, forever. People blame the model for what is actually a missing briefing. Step 4. And only now add the gateway. Once you've felt the specific moment where your one model wasn't enough, you'll understand exactly what the gateway is for. Install it, put its endpoint and key into your extension settings as a custom OpenAI compatible provider. And now you have many models behind one configuration. Why does that order matter? Because it isolates failures. Each step is independently verifiable, so when something breaks you know precisely which layer broke. The people who post "this doesn't work" comments almost always did all 4 steps in one sitting and have no idea which one failed. One more configuration detail worth knowing. Almost every extension here supports a custom OpenAI compatible endpoint, a field for a base URL and a key. That single field is the universal adapter of this entire ecosystem. It's how a local Olama instance works in a tool built for cloud APIs, and how a gateway works in a tool that's never heard of it. When you see that field, you know the tool will work with anything. The honest cost reality. Now the section that separates this video from the excitable ones, because the word free is doing a lot of work in this genre and you deserve the actual numbers. Every extension I've named is free. $0 for the software, open source, permissively licensed. That part is unambiguous. But BYOK means you pay for tokens. And if you point a free extension at a premium API with your credit card attached, the bill is real. Published figures from tool comparisons put a heavy agentic user at roughly $50 to $200 a month in API costs, and a light user at $5 to $20. A single complex agentic session on a premium model can run $5 to $20 by itself. That's the trap. The extension is free, so people assume the setup is. Then discover that free tool plus premium API is one of the more expensive ways to code. So here's how you actually reach 0 and stay there. 3 tiers of usage, 3 routes. For your high-volume routine work, the majority of your day, use a local model. No metering, no limits, no data leaving your machine. This is the floor that can't be taken away. For occasional harder tasks, use the free tiers via the gateway with fallback so you're never blocked when one pool empties. And for the genuinely difficult 20%, hard architecture, gnarly legacy code, a real deadline, spend a few dollars of API credit deliberately. Not $100 a month forever for capability you're mostly not using. A few dollars on the specific tasks that earn it. Run that split honestly, and your monthly cost lands somewhere between 0 and a few dollars, while the person paying a subscription is spending $20 to $200 for a similar outcome. And notice what you have that they don't. If every provider on Earth changed their pricing tomorrow, your local layer would keep working exactly as it does today. The 5 mistakes that cause it stopped working. Predictable failures, all avoidable. Mistake 1. Building on one free tier. If a single provider's free tier is the only thing powering your setup, you're one policy change away from broken. That's not hypothetical. A major vendor's free command line offering ended this year. Use a gateway with fallback or keep a local model as your floor. Redundancy is the whole point. Mistake 2, expecting autocomplete from an agent. Install Cline expecting Copilot-style gray text, and you'll conclude it's broken when it's simply a different category of tool. Agents do tasks, autocomplete engines do keystrokes. If you want both, run both. Mistake 3, skipping the instructions file. The silent killer, your agent doesn't know your conventions, so it invents them, and you blame the model. 15 minutes of writing changes your results more than switching models does. Mistake 4, routing sensitive code through unknown free tiers. Covered above and worth repeating because the consequences aren't technical. Read the terms, use local for anything confidential. Mistake 5, following a tutorial older than a few months without checking. This ecosystem moves monthly. Tools get archived as we saw. Free tiers change. Billing structures shift. Before you follow any guide, including this one, spend 2 minutes confirming the tool still exists and the tier still says what the video claims. That habit is worth more than any specific recommendation I can give you. 5 questions I know are coming. Do I need to leave VS Code for Cursor or Windsurf? No. And worth knowing, those aren't extensions, they're separate applications, forks of VS Code. Switching means migrating your whole environment. Everything in this video keeps you in standard VS Code, which matters if you have corporate policies, deep extension dependencies, or simply don't want to relearn an editor. The gap that used to justify switching has largely closed. Can I get autocomplete for free too? Yes, and it's the most missed piece. The vendor free tiers include completions, and Continue and KiloCode both support autocomplete with a model of your choosing, including a small, fast local one, which is actually the ideal use for a small model. Autocomplete needs speed far more than brilliance. Point a 7 billion coding model at it, and you'll be happy. Will this work in a corporate environment? Often better than the alternatives. For one specific reason. A fully local configuration means your code never leaves the machine, which is the easiest thing in the world to get security approval for. What needs review is the free tier routing. Get the local layer approved first, treat cloud routes as a separate conversation. How much slower is local, honestly? At the right tier for your hardware, 30 to 60 plus tokens a second, which is faster than you read. On a small machine with no GPU around reading speed. The honest answer is that for autocomplete and bounded tasks, you won't notice. For long agentic runs on a big codebase, you will. What happens when this video is out of date? Parts of it will be within months, that's this ecosystem. Which is exactly why the 3-layer model is the spine of this video rather than a tool list. When a name changes, the structure tells you which slot the replacement goes in. The honest limits, 4. 1. Free tiers are not service-level agreements. They're individual and small team capacity, offered at the provider's discretion. Fine for your own work, learning side projects, and internal tools. Not something to put under a product your customers depend on. 2. Local models still trail the frontier on the hardest problems. That gap has narrowed enormously, and we've documented that narrowing repeatedly, but it exists. For subtle architecture and genuinely ambiguous problems, the best paid models are still better. The 80-20 split exists because both halves are true. 3. This setup asks more of you than a subscription. A paid product is one login and a polished experience. This is 3 layers you assemble and occasionally maintain. In exchange, 0 cost, real privacy, no rate limits on the local layer, no deprecations, and complete control. Genuinely great trade for many people. Genuinely bad trade for someone who wants a button that works. Be honest about which you are. 4. Specifics expire, structure doesn't. Every extension name, model name, and free tier number in this video has a shelf life measured in months. The 3-layer model doesn't. Extension, model, gateway, swap anyone. Keep the rest. That's why I spent the first 3 minutes on it, and it's the actual thing I want you to take away. A real Tuesday. Concrete version, because layers are abstract and a working day isn't. You open VS Code, your agentic extension is in the sidebar, your autocomplete is doing its quiet thing as you type. You describe a feature in plain language. The extension reads your instructions file, so it already knows your stack and your conventions. It plans, you approve, it writes across 4 files and runs your tests. That's your local model doing it. No network, nothing metered. A test fails in a way that's genuinely puzzling. You switch the model dropdown to a frontier model, routed through your gateway on a free tier, ask the same question with the failure attached, get a sharper answer, and switch back. Cost nothing, because the fallback found an available pool. Later, you're working on something under a client NDA. You deliberately switch to local only for that session because you read the terms and you know which route is safe for that material. That's not paranoia, that's professionalism. End of day. A feature shipped, tests passing, your conventions respected, and a metered cost of 0. Not a demo, a Tuesday. Step back, because there's a bigger point in here than a configuration. 2 years ago, AI coding in VS Code meant one product from one company at one price. And the interesting question was whether it was worth the money. Today, the extension is open source. The model is your choice. The gateway is a component. And the interesting question is how you want to assemble it. That happened because everything agreed on one interface. That base URL and key field, the OpenAI compatible protocol, is the reason your local model works in a tool designed for the cloud, and the reason a gateway can sit invisibly in the middle. The revolution wasn't a model. It was a standard. And once things agree on how to talk to each other, you stop buying bundles and start assembling parts. Which is what makes this durable in a way a subscription isn't. When a better model arrives next month, you change a dropdown. When a better extension arrives, your models and your conventions come with you. You're not upgrading a product you rent. You're swapping a part in a machine you own. So here's my question, and I'll pin it below. What's in your 3 layers? Tell me your extension, your model, and whether you're running a gateway plus which route you're using to get to 0. And if you've hit a wall, say where, because the walls are the useful information. I read every reply, and the setups that come up most often become the next deep dive on this channel. Every link, every extension, the free tiers with their current published limits, the gateway, and our full breakdowns of the local model side is in the description, organized by layer, so you can jump to whichever one you're building. That's the standard here. The real explanation, sourced in plain English with the limits and the fine print included rather than skipped. If you'd rather own your tools than rent them, subscribe. That's what we do every single day. I'll see you in the next one.